Hey, good evening, everybody. Jeff Colson here with Mike Bloom. Mike Bloom sitting in Chicago. I'm sitting in New York, ready to talk about junior hockey. This is Junior Hockey Live. It's our second podcast. And just so you know, what we're here to do is to talk about the different junior leagues. Tonight, we're highlighting two different junior leagues. We'll be talking about some of their teams, how the leagues operate, some of the players in the leagues. And I'm Jeff Colson. And Mike, how you doing?
I'm good, Jeff. How are you?
That's about the cheesiest freaking opening you could have. Way to
This
go
is
to
a
freaking
corporate podcast, right?
yeah. If we've got one person on right now, they just left. Okay. All right. So once again, premise is set up to talk about juniors. We are live, so you are able to send us a note. You can tell us where you're watching from. Already, I see Jacob's checking in. Jacob is in North Carolina. And I should tell you also, Jacob's son is playing junior hockey in Sweden. Correct me if he's playing U18 or junior, Jacob. And Jacob also has a podcast that deals with junior hockey and Sweden. And we can get him on the show at some time, and maybe that'll be a bonus league we talk about. We'll talk about where his son's playing and how things operate over in Sweden. Because to be honest with you, Jacob is the expert compared to me on all things Sweden. I couldn't tell you a thing about. Or I couldn't hold the bags that he carries when it comes to that. So he's playing J18 junior. So once again, he can explain that to you. And while you're on, Jacob, tell us if you can pop on, and we'll get you on pretty soon. Kim's coming on and saying hi. Good to see you too. All right, let's get rolling. We're going to talk about Mike, tell us what we're talking about. What leagues do you want to start with?
Yeah, so the leagues we want to talk about this time is going to be the AJ, which is the Alberta Junior League. So there's a couple teams in that league that historically are pretty strong. They're playing each other this weekend. We got Bonnyville playing against the Sherwood Park. And right now, Bonnyville's fourth in their division. Sherwood Park is fifth. Their records are pretty similar. The amount of games played, kind of where they slot, both goals for, goals against. So it looks like it's kind of primed up to be a pretty solid matchup. So we're looking to see that one on Friday. And then on Saturday, Camrose is taking on Whitecourt. Camrose is currently the third seed, and Whitecourt is the second. So again, two good matchups that are taking place this weekend. We want to highlight a couple players that are playing in this matchup. The first player that we want to take a look at is from Bonnyville, and it's Ethan Look.
Mike, before you jump there, let's talk a little bit about the league. We on Junior Hockey Advisor on YouTube, I do have a video up that's dealing with that. I think I put up there. Yeah, it's called Americans Playing in the AJHL. It's a couple years old, but it does a good job of explaining the league and explaining where it fits in the order. So it might be something you're interested in doing. Just go to this Junior Hockey Advisor page. You can pull up our video list and categories, and you can see the video on the AJ. Slanted towards Americans playing there because that was the need at the time, but it's still a great video to understand the process. This is Alberta. If you don't know much about the Canadian leagues, many of them are built on their province. So if you're looking at a map and you start at the left, the BCHL, which is not a CJHL member anymore, the BCHL is it's still the top junior program outside of the majors in Canada. Yep. That's in British Columbia. Then it just moves across. The AJHL is Alberta. Then the Saskatchewan is the next. It's the SJHL. Then the MJHL is Manitoba. So they just move all the way over until you get to Ontario. And then Ontario has several, as the Northern Ontario League. It's got the OJHL. It's got the CCHL. And it's got the Superior International Junior League. So there's actually four that share Ontario. We're talking about the second best league in Canada for players that are not playing major junior hockey in Alberta. And the way it breaks down is it's east-west, north-south. I'm not sure exactly what the lines of demarcation are, but the game that you picked out for Friday night is Sherwood against who'd you say they're playing? Are they playing Bonnie?
No. Yeah.
Okay, so just on the map that you're looking at there, you can see that Sherwood is way on the east, or Bonnyville is way on the east, and Sherwood is more in the central. That's a pretty easy commute for this side. The south area here, that's from Camrose on down, is more of your your major cities are Edmonton and Calgary. They're more down by the Calgary areas. They're kind of the central area they're built around, and that's where you got your Olds and your Calgary and your Canmore. On the far left, you see all the jagged part of the province there, how it's all jagged on that angular side there. That's where the Rocky Mountains are. So on the left, when you're looking at that map on the left, it's the Rockies. So the teams like Grand Prairie, Canmore, you might even want to throw Okotoks in there. Canmore especially. Canmore is sitting at the base of the Rockies. It's in a ski villa. It could be one of the most picturesque places you could ever see for hockey. Once the video is up, I'll post some pictures of Canmore and some of the areas there. These are places where the team walks out in the back of the rink to warm up in the fall, early fall, and there's a herd of elk there that are like 20 yards away, and they're all laying in the field next to where the players are warming up. You cannot find a more beautiful area to play hockey, but at the same time, if you're playing for Fort McMurray and you got to play Okotoks or you got to play Calgary, you got a little bit of a bus ride. It can be a little bit, but nowhere near what the USHL is. Good league, though. Great hockey. It rates fourth in output for both Americans and Canadians going to play NCAA Division I hockey. It's the fourth best league statistically to play in. So now that we kind of covered a little bit on that, Bloomer, tell us about the matchups.
Yeah, well, before, you missed a huge point in the fact that the AJ is most widely known for Brooks and the Brooks Bandits. So, historically, that team is an absolute powerhouse. I think they got a little bit more recognition nationally once Cale Makar played there. And, they've had some other good players in the past, but, that team, yeah, only a couple.
Yeah, they pump out some great talent there. That is absolutely true. It's a juggernaut. It's a national contender every single year for the national title in the CJHL. Yeah. Wonderful program as far as output goes, and the mentality is for all these programs. Maybe not Calgary when you get down to some of those places there. I'm pointing at my screen, but most of these programs, they're owned by the community. They play in a community rink. And they've got unbelievable support. You've just got towns that are built around the hockey. It seems like you go into town, and everybody's there. You got 800 people in a town of a few thousand watching the game. So it's really fun to go up there. They have a wonderful showcase in the AJHL. The showcase draws NHL scouts, D1, some D3. And you might see the USHL there too because they're looking at players, but and a lot of advisors. So Camrose is a great place that they hosted a lot. I'm not sure if this last year I didn't get up there for, but that's usually where they host it because they have two rinks that are junior capable with crowds, and it's just chocked full of black shoes, black pants, and black coats on the scouts. And you can always tell a scout because they got black on black on black. And if they're dressed like that, they're pumping out something for somebody.
They got the little zip up binder that they're hanging on to and sitting in the corner away from everyone, just sticking out like a sore thumb.
Except when you get a wave of them in there, and then it looks like what's the Australian rugby team? The
All Blacks.
The All Blacks. You're expecting them to stand up at any time and start, shouting because they all sit. They flock together into an area and take it over. So, there's a lot of scouts up there for their showcase. I would put that on par, maybe even better sometimes than the NAHl's showcase as far as their numbers go of people showing up. There's definitely more NAHL that shows up for that because of proximity. It's easier to get to sometimes than Blaine, but. For Canadian scouts, I'm talking about. But yeah, all right. So we're talking Bonnie, Sherwood, and they're both. Where are we sitting on the rankings with Bonnie and Sherwood?
So Bonnie's currently fourth, Sherwood's fifth. So again, pretty similar in record, and it seems from a roster standpoint, talent. So that's the game on Friday night we want to showcase. within that game, the one player that we want to kind of key in on, thinking that he's going to have a good weekend, is Ethan Look, who's 2004 from Calgary, Alberta.
What
He's
team was he on again?
he's on Bonnyville.
Okay, so if I jump down to Bonnyville, we're going to take a look at Ethan. Now, these teams are 23 games in for the year right now.
Pretty close.
And we're looking at Ethan Look. Okay, got him. Right there he is. Sitting on 5-12 for the year right now. Is that correct?
Yeah. 17 points in 23 games for 2004. Again, he's from Calgary, Alberta. He grew up playing for the Notre Dame Hounds. So anyone that's familiar with, AAA hockey in Canada, Notre Dame is historically a program that pumps out a ton of NHL level talent. You got the Vinny LeCavaliers and Brad Richards and Brenda Moore, and I mean the list goes on. So that's a really strong program. Again, he's an 04, playing junior hockey. He's just under a point per game. He's a kid that's got a lot of talent, a lot of ability. A little bit younger, weight wise, maybe a little undersized still, but is just oozing with talent. So he's a kid that I feel like can make a difference in this matchup. And again, it's easy to take, the best scorer on each team and do a spotlight on them. But, we want to try to take a look at somebody that's a little bit under the radar. It's a little too easy to take their number one scorer and say, this is the guy that's going to have a weekend. Of course, he's probably going to have a good weekend. But again, somebody that might assert themselves this weekend, we're looking to Ethan Look.
I hope the best for Ethan, and it looks like he started off good. That's an 04. You find this league isn't as old as the NAHl, but it is an older league for the most part. You don't get a lot of the younger guys, especially young talent in that area. Alberta has the ability to go to two areas before they would go to the AJ. They can go to the major juniors to play in the WHL, and if they're young and super talented, that happens a lot. And the BCHL tends to run a young side. So you'll see a lot of the younger players that are extremely talented jumping over to British Columbia if they're not playing in the United States. Just wanted to take 1 second here while you're talking about it, Mike. There are a few Americans on the roster. I think they're carrying about 4. They got 1 goalie, 2, 3. They got 4, and I'm not sure if 1 kid's still on the roster. But just because we know we've got a lot of people that tune in, I'm going to just grab one of them, Michael here, and kind of look at his path up to the AJ. So here's an 03 center, 19 years old. Once again, this isn't solicited or nothing that Mike and I talked about. I just wanted to kind of give you an idea how some people show up in the league. This is an East Coast kid that went right through the ranks of playing on the East Coast like most kids do. Came up through the EHF and the Cape Cod Whalers program. Jumped over to St. Sebastian's. You can see his the year with the pandemic there, and then jumped after graduating 4 years at St. Sebastian's, jumped up to Bonnyville. That's not uncommon. You'll see a lot of kids there. They don't get a lot of prep. BCHL steals almost, if you're not in the USHL, the BCHL is where most top prep players go, but you will see some jump over. And I just wanted to highlight that when we get a chance to look at a team that most people in the States have never either heard about or looked at, kind of look at how a roster is built up there. And this is pretty standard. A few Americans, no foreigners from other places, and mostly Canadians that are built up around the area that the team's from.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that when it comes to some of the prep school kids that may end up leaving and going to the AJ, we know the BC is kind of a pipeline that's recently happened, but then you see a couple one-offs where those players end up in the AJ and whatnot. And honestly, I think it comes down to relationships. It could be that particular coach for that program's got a relationship with somebody in the AJ and they trust that they're going to look after that player and help them grow. We've seen, in years past for Bonnyville specifically, they had a player, Charlie Russell, who's now in the USHL, but he played for South Kent and, was out there. His dad obviously has good connections with different programs everywhere, but the AJ was a path that he decided to take and then now is in the USHL. So there is a little bit of a pipeline within the AJ and the prep school guys. And again, I think it's just their coaches. Everything in hockey is obviously all about, relationships and things like that. It's such a small
Yeah.
community and tight knit community and whatnot. But yeah, I'm assuming that every year you'll probably see on Bonneville maybe one or two of those Americans coming from prep because they've done it in the past and found success, and that's why they're continuing to do it.
Well, one name I was going to bring up, and I don't know how I'm spelling Blankenberg. I can't see my screen because I got it up on with you. I think
You're
it's
so old.
what's that?
I said you're so old.
Yeah, it's not because I couldn't see it that way. It was because technology got in my way. So here's
Uh,
Nick Blankenberg. I think most people that know the Big Ten and know Big Ten hockey or know Michigan hockey or just college hockey at all. Here's a 4-year Michigan player. Um, grew up in the suburbs of Detroit. Not a big kid. He chose to take the. If you look down here, he chose to take the path to the AJ. Played for Victory Honda U18. So once again, myth dispelled about playing U18. That U18 is a bad path. It's a very viable path for a lot of Division I hockey players. But he left Victory Honda. He went up to Okotoks and played in the AJHL for a year. Discovered by Michigan at the showcase that I was talking about, and came on as I don't know if he was quite a walk-on. He might have been a recruited walk-on or a small package, but I don't think he had money his first year or two. And look where he's at now. He's 7 games deep with the Columbus Blue Jackets. So, and we're talking 4 years off of playing for Okotoks. We're now in the NHL. And that nobody when he was playing for Victory Honda for Coach Burke would have ever have guessed that he would be, a player that's playing at the Columbus level. But the point is, small player, didn't fit in with the USHL, didn't fit in with the BC, didn't fit in with the NAHl. Found himself a home in Okotoks and made it work and did really well. So I threw that up there because it just shows. You got Cale Makar, you've got Nick Blankenberg. These are big names that are coming out of this league, and and he was the captain of several great Michigan teams over the last couple of years here. Talk about the pressure on a kid like that. Think about that, Mike. You're sitting on a team that's got 13 first-round draft picks or whatever that crazy number that Michigan has of first-round draft picks. And you're not a drafted player, you're coming out of the AJ, and you end up being the captain of these guys. That's pretty healthy.
Well, it all comes down to leadership and work ethic, especially if you're coming from that path. So, him being a captain is probably less surprising as him, playing in the NHL in such a quick period of time. It just goes to the hard work. And honestly, like his story reminds me of Luke Glendening, who literally went almost the same path of being played. I think he was a football player, and because of that, decided not to play AAA hockey for the majority of his youth career, and ends up, I can't remember what his junior path was, but he ends up going to Michigan, isn't like a scholared player, is a walk-on, and by the time he's a 4th-year player, is their captain, and then ends up with the Grand Rapids Griffins, not even the Red Wings. And then Mike Babcock decides that he really likes what Luke Glendening has to offer and decides to give him a shot for a game or two in Detroit, and he never went back down.
Yeah.
And again, Luke Glendening is still in the NHL now. I think he's with Dallas maybe. And again, not a highly touted player, didn't play high levels growing up because he was a multi-sport athlete. And you just never know what the path is for any of these guys. And even if you're on the fast track, it still doesn't mean you're going to get there. You could be in the U.S. development program and still not make it. It's just, you got to continue to work and you got to continue to do the right things and, just continuously keep improving and improving. And before you know it, you're going to max out at some point where you're at.
Hey, I want to finish up because we got some questions coming in. Matt, we'll get to your question as soon as we get done with the AJ. We'll finish up with the AJ. What's our other matchups that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so Saturday, Camrose is playing White Court. White Court historically is one of the more premier programs. Also, they're currently sitting at number 2 in the division, and Camrose is having a great year. They're sitting at 3. So again, close in the standings. A little bit of a rivalry there from a point standpoint, trying to climb one another in the standings if they can. But the one player we want to highlight is from the White Court standpoint, and they just had a big trade in the last week where they ended up shipping off a couple players and acquired Colby Brown, who is a 2003 from Evergreen, Colorado. So he is an American kid that we're highlighting in this one. He is from the Shattuck St. Mary's program. Was always a solid player for the different teams that he played on, put up points wherever he was at. I think he might have played in a game or maybe 2 for White Court since the trade, but at this point, he's looking to really thrust that team into a higher level. So I'm looking for him to really establish himself this weekend in this upcoming series that they have.
So Colby Brown, I'm familiar with him. I'm surprised he's one of your players. I didn't realize you were grabbing Colby Brown. If you told me, I just missed it. Played for the Olds Grizzlies last year. Olds Grizzlies is in the basement a few years ago, 5, 7, 8 years ago. They were on the top. They were one of the national champions for the AJHL that was represented for the CJHL Cup overall. That's where all the different CJHL teams play up. Outstanding player, but when you get on a team that's a perennial bottom team, it's hard for them to recruit good players. It's hard for them to bring them in. An American might come in, they might recruit an American, then he looks left and looks right and realizes there's nothing to support on the team. This is a good opportunity for him. This is a good team for him to go to. I think you're going to see great things out of him. He's a good player. But I have experience with my own son playing in the AJHL a few years ago now, 4, 5, 6 years ago now, playing for the Olds. And once you get on Olds, it's very difficult to it's like getting recruited anywhere. You're playing for the top teams. You're playing for a White Court. You're playing for a Camrose. You're playing for one of the top teams. Brooks is in a different level. You're getting exposed. You're getting people talking to you. You're getting people watching you at showcases. When you're playing for Olds, it's extremely difficult. They haven't turned the corner yet to bring themselves back up into that top echelon. And I don't know if it's going to happen in 1 year or 4 years, but if you're on that roster, it's really tough. And if you're an American, as soon as you get on that roster, most Americans are looking to find a way out of the league or out of the team, whatever comes first. Now, it's sometimes hard to get out of the team and stay in the AJ because the team wants to hold you. They want to protect you. So a lot of kids will actually leave and go play in the NAHl or go play in the BC that would really help the whole league if they stayed in the AJ. So interesting. Good luck to him. I'm expecting big numbers from him. I think maybe not over the weekend because he's got to kind of assimilate into this team. He's only got a couple games with him, but let's watch and see how he does. He is in 21 games for Olds. He had 16 points. That's not bad. Yeah, hard to get points on Olds.
On a bad team, So the fact that he was almost a point a game, that says a lot about his ability.
Yep, absolutely. And if his dad does catch the live stream here, good luck to your son. We've had some really good conversations over time. I think you've talked to the family too. Not sure if you have or not, Bloom. Have you had contact with him?
Not directly, but been following him for a while.
Okay. All right. So that's our big matchup there. Is that it for the AJ?
That's it for the AJ.
Okay, before we get rolling on to our next league, let's jump into get us back to the screen. Let's jump on to Matt's question. Let's see if we can help Matt out here a little bit. Matt comes on and asks, second year U18 versus Tier 3 juniors. I've got an opinion, but Mike, go first. Tell people what you think on this, because I think your opinion is probably going to align with mine.
Well, I think when you deal with any types of these questions, the word I always use is it depends. And I know it's a cop-out in some way, but
give your opinion.
It depends on what is your U18 AAA option and what is the tier 3 junior option. And once I know what the two of those are, I can better help push you, like, you know what, maybe staying and playing U18 AAA is going to be the better option. You're going to be playing higher end talent. You're going to have the ability to continue to stay at home and maybe go to your high school if you're still a senior in high school. Like, all of those things matter. I think it's always really difficult to take a kid out of their senior year of high school, have them billeting or staying somewhere else, and now they have the pressure of being away from home, living with a stranger, all these different things. And now I got to also play hockey and perform and try to earn my way up a lineup or earn my way into a new league and things like that. So depending on the kid and their maturity and where they're at with themselves personally, maybe staying home and playing U18 AAA is the best approach. If you're out in the middle of nowhere,
you lost me at it depends.
well, then why don't we give you the microphone to share your opinion on what the right route is?
I'm going to give you some stats. Okay, let's go back over to EP. Let's have some fun. Remember, I've got the premium package on, so if this doesn't look like your screen, it's because I'm on the premium package. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up, give me a tier 3 league. Oh, no, I'm going to go this way. I'm going to pull up the NAHl, because the NAHl is, a step with the most teams for tier 2 hockey. This is the step into tier 2 hockey in the United States that has the most output to Division I and Division III college hockey. And it's realistic to say I really want to play in the NAHl. The USHL is a different step, and it's a higher echelon with only 16 teams. So we're going to look at the league with 30 teams. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scroll down, and I'm going to get to where the first green is. It's player stats, and it's the green button. And we've shown you this before, but it works. I'm just going to go up here, and let's just punch in NAHl players that have played what do you want? What EHL? EHL. Okay.
Nailed it.
Is that what you said? Is EHL?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like how you say it as you type it. Like it's a tough one.
I would use certain language, but there it is. Okay, so I've got the EHL pumped in. Now I'm going to go and filter out and pull up all the kids that have played in the EHL. And we're not picking them because we could pick any of the tier 3 leagues and we can show others. There's 19 kids that had a shot. So what do we got, Bloomer? We got 23, 25 per roster times 30 teams. What's that math?
Oh, I was told there'd be no math in this podcast.
I just happen to have one of these little devices here, and I can do it really quick because I can't do it in my head. 30 teams times 25. There's 750. Let's just say 700 to 750 players in the NAHl. We've got 19 kids and 2 goalies, so 20. Now, remember that you look at some of these guys down at the bottom, we're not picking on names, but if you got 2, 2, 2, 1, 1, 0, 0, those guys probably aren't playing in the league. They've probably gone back to another team, back to the EHL or elsewhere. And I don't want to pull anybody up and to embarrass anybody. Let's just look at the list. So if we've got 2, 4, 6, 8-ish, or you go up here, 9-ish players, you've got 10 kids coming from the EHL to this league. Now, I'll go back up and change the filter. Now, just to make sure that we're not, picking on one program, we can go to USPHL Premier and apply the filter there. You're looking at USPHL Premier, a few more kids. You've got 54, but once again, look at all these 3s and 1s and 4s and 3s and 1s and 1s and 1s and 1s and 0s and 0s. What that means is, there's not really, somebody may have got onto a roster, but it was a short-lived experience. There's only really 1, 2, 3, 10, 12 kids that are coming from that league out of the tier 3 ranks. So, and you look at the goalies too on the bottom, make sure we can include the goalies. There's 3. And it's probably percentage-wise easier for a goalie to make the move than it is anybody else. And of the goalies, we've only got one that's got multiple games and two that have one game, and the other ones have 0. So the point on this is, Matt, we can go league by league and look at the small percentage of players that come out of Tier 3. Then I just want to go back up here, and we'll switch this now, and we'll go to Tier 1 Elite. This is the Tier 1 18s. I'll use the Tier 1 Elite 18s if I can find it. It's right there, right in front of my eyes again. Okay, let's apply the filter to Tier 1 Elite. And now when we look at Tier 1 Elite, you'll see, now the league's got a lot of teams, we know that, but it's not 100. There's another page here. There's 124 players, and we've got 10 and 4. So you got 130, 140 players. Now, once again, you can see zeros, but you see a lot less zeros. You've got you've got 17, 19, 20, 20, 18, probably usually when I look at this list, I'd say 70% of the kids are actually on there. Now, because they're coming out of U18, you can't just assume that if they got 5 or 6 games that they went back down. So many of these kids are coming in as young rookies out of U18 hockey that because they're coming in as rookies, they're just not getting as many games. So, yeah, there's a tail of the tape here that can show that. Now, I could put a different league in there. I can put the HPHL in, which is a combination of Detroit teams, and 3 from Detroit, 3 from Chicago. Names like the Chicago Mission. You look at this list, only 6 teams, 31 players, and a couple goalies. And once again, you got a few that don't have games, but you've got a lot up towards the top. For a league with only 6 teams, that's pretty good numbers. Once again, I can put the AYA in there. I can put the Beast in there. Let's see, Beast 18U, just another 18 league. And we look at the amount of players in there. Once again, small league as far as guys that are counted, because the Beast has some teams that are full season, but most of these teams, these kids will show up coming in from their prep team because the Beast has a lot of these combined teams. So 22 guys on that list. You can see that, in my opinion, statistically, if you've got an opportunity to play in a top league at U18, play your U18 hockey. And this also comes into sacrifice. If you're going to leave town to play juniors at Tier 3 and spend $12,000 a year, or go to the Detroit market or the Boston market, some of these hotter markets, to play U18 for $6,000, to me, it's not only a cost saver, but it's highly exposed hockey. You're getting in the front of it. I'll tell you this. Bloomer, when was the last time you went and watched a Tier 3 game as a recruiting, as a director? You work for a Tier 2 NAHl team as a player development director. You or your scouts, when was the last time you went and scouted a USHL Premier in a 3-game or an EHL game?
The last time I would have been the first time I've ever been, which I haven't been.
So that tells you something. The other thing it tells you is you're not going to be in front of college coaches for the most part. You'll get in front of some D3 schools, but once again, you can do the same statistical game. We're not going to do it right now, but you can do the same statistical game with colleges watching kids at the Tier 3 level versus where they end up on, where those Tier 3 teams are ranked. You've got echelons of the premium Division 3 college programs, the mid-level Division 3 college programs, and the low end, and it's going to be commensurate to where you come from. You don't see too many. You'll see some on good teams, and then you remember they're carrying 30. Some of these guys are, I hate to say it this way, but they're more practice players when they're up and playing on one of these elite teams. So who are the elite teams? Pull up the rankings. You can see who they are. I mean, historically, the elite teams are your Geneseos, your Norwiches, your Plattsburghs, your Middleburys, your Stevens Points. Those are, and lately Adrian's been one of those programs. You're going to see less guys coming from Tier 3. You're going to see more guys coming from drop downs from Division 1 programs and coming from solid junior programs. Tier 2 are so Matt, if you're still on, hopefully that answered the question. What do you think, Mike? Do you think
I mean, I think the
it
statistics.
depends?
Well, the statistics show, when it's apples to apples between the two options, that U18 AAA is the better option. But there's gray area within there, and that's what's so hard for people to try to navigate because
There's always
you
gray
know,
area. There's always the Luke Glendenning that played Double-A hockey and made it. Okay, you can try his path, or you could use the path that statistically everybody uses to get somewhere. It doesn't mean your path has got to be exactly like your left winger and your right winger, but most likely the path is going to be where most people go, not the one off.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say though is if you play for a AAA program that historically does not produce any player at the tier 2 level, we know that there's those. They could be in the NAPHL, they could be in the HPHL and be one of the bottom teams that just never moves, guys on, and their end goal ends up being tier 3 hockey anyway. Is it better for them to get a head start on playing tier 3 hockey? There are scenarios where that is the better option. It's just you have to look at what your options are. And to your point, maybe doing that reverse search on elite prospects to see, okay, and I don't want to throw any programs out there by name, but if I played for this program, how many kids historically have moved on to that next level? And if it's no one, then maybe playing U18 AAA hockey elsewhere. And instead of going to tier 3 juniors, you're going to Detroit. Patrick Kane was living in Buffalo and decided to play junior hockey in Detroit area. Patrick Kane probably would have made the NHL if he stayed in Buffalo, but decided at that point to make that move. There's a lot of people that live in areas where they don't have the AAA that other places have, and they move.
I embarrassed myself earlier today talking to a parent with a very similar situation. Talking to a parent, trying to give him some advice on, what's going on. They named the program they were playing for, and I'm definitely not going to name it. And I went, probably the first step would be to get on the U18 AAA team. And he goes, we are. And I went, didn't recognize the name of the program and always thought it was a AA or a single A program going up because, they're so low ranked. And I was just blunt. I said, look, I usually know the top 30, top 40, top 50 U18 programs. I'm sorry I didn't recognize or realize that program was AAA because rarely am I looking at a 100 or 150 or whatever that is. Now, you said something that was interesting. You said reverse the roster. Let's just make sure everybody understands what we're talking about there because even though I did it, I don't think, people may have understood that. Let me put in the University of Michigan in. That's a really good program. Agree, Mike?
Yeah, I think we both like that program. We use them a lot.
Okay, so here's Michigan. And all I have to do is, once again, I can look at this team, and I can go all the way down to the bottom, and I can see some team facts about them. But what it'll allow me to do is look at team history and standings. I can pick up any of those. Here's where their stars and cult players are. That's not really important to us, but where they are now is important because it shows me how many guys transferred out or how many guys are, came up and came back to prep or playing pro hockey somewhere. But the real thing I want to do is I want to go back up to the top and I want to grab, I wanted to grab the Big Ten from here, but I guess it's not going to let me. The bottom line is I can grab the Big Ten. I'll just talk about it for a second. I can grab that Big Ten and I can say who's played for, we used Victory Honda, let's use Bell Tire. And it'll tell me in the Big Ten who played for Bell Tire. I can use Mount St. Charles. I can use Anaheim. I can put any of these programs in and sort it so I can see who played in the Big Ten, who played for that U18 team. So you can kind of get a sense either if I want to go to Michigan, I can't really get there from here. At least there's not a historical path. Or maybe I've got to reset my sights because I really want to play for that U18 team. But it doesn't look like Michigan connects to that team much. Doesn't mean they won't, but everybody's got their biases. Everybody's got their go-tos. And, these coaches trust certain junior programs. They trust certain U18 programs. to make that connection to move up the ranks. So that's a great way to do it. Mike, you're spot on with that suggestion. All right, we're going to look at the EHL, right?
Yep, that's the next one on the list.
So what are the teams we're looking at?
So we got a couple. One actually has a game tomorrow. So it's the Railers Junior Hockey Club playing the Connecticut Chiefs. Right now, the Railers are number 1. The Connecticut Chiefs are number 2.
Ooh,
So
good matchup.
Clash of two good teams in that particular division. And then the other one we're going to look at for the Saturday matchup is the Boston Junior Rangers playing against New Hampshire Avalanche. And this is actually a battle of 2 firsts. So this should be a good cross-division matchup between these 2 programs. So some good matchups this weekend, at least within this league.
Okay, just to stop for 1 second. Okay, if Facebook users, good lesson here. The software we're using usually gives you an opportunity to sign up so we can see names. If you're using the Facebook and watching us through there, it only shows up as Facebook user. So I know somebody is saying hi to us. Hi to you too. Don't know who you are. Throw your name on there. Oh, okay, here we go. There you go. How you doing, Buzz? Good to see you on. Appreciate it.
What a
guy. Okay, let me give you a little bit of background on this league, and then we'll talk a little bit about some players we're looking at. So EHL breaks down into a Northeast league. You know, your bottom end of this is going to be Maryland. Your top end of this league now, geez, who's the furthest up now? Vermont, easily up in Vermont there. So it used to have a lot of New York presence. This is the old. This is a combination of 2 leagues from the past. This was the old Empire League and the old EJHL. And when the EJHL, the majority of the teams split, some of the other teams that didn't go with the EJHL into the USPHL, they joined this league. And the Empire League, the teams that did not attach to the second echelon of the USHL, because when the USHL first, or USPHL first started, it was just Premier and Elite. There was no NCDC. So they created the NCDC and just moved everybody up a notch, so they'd have 3 levels. But when it first came out, the EJHL teams went up to Premier. The Empire League teams went to Elite for the most part. That's the way it broke down. And the rest of the teams created the EHL. And so this league has been around in its current form for about 7-8 years now, I believe. Your names may have changed a little bit, but you still got some names that are some, Boston Junior Rangers, East Coast Wizards. Some of these names, Walpole, they've been around forever. Some of the other names, Apple Corps, been around forever. We can go through all these names, but it's a solid league. Statistically, this is going to be a league that gets you to one area, Division III college hockey. This is not a league that produces Division I players. It's got a really solid niche, and it produces a lot of D3 players. I mean, a lot. Statistically, the hottest league to play in if you know you're a D3 player is the EHL. They're the king of the throne for that development path straight to D3 hockey. And you'll see a lot of these players stay right at home. And actually, this is one of the few leagues where you'll see players commit early. You won't see a NAHl kid commit to D3 hockey early. They'll wait till the spring, where in this league you'll see some guys that they'll commit. It's also a hotbed for players that are going to play in some of the elite schools coming out of the East Coast. Your Middlebury's, programs like that play in the NESCAC, which is like an Ivy League for D3 hockey. It's super high-end academics with really good hockey too. So that's the league. It's tip of the Northeast, and you get little kids from out of the area like the other leagues. They spawn out and cover the nation. This is highly concentrated with East Coast hockey players, and this is also highly concentrated with kids that are going to play D3 hockey on the East Coast.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head too when you talked about the timing of it and just how kids in the EHL will sign sooner because their goal is to play Division III hockey. And when you're talking about the NAHl, they sign later and things like that. It's because they perceive themselves as a Division I player until they're not a Division I player, and then the process of, okay, which D3 school is the best option for me, kind of comes into play. But the EHL kid, as soon as they find the right D3 school, that's where they go. So they do sign quicker.
Yes, they do. Any questions on that? Feel free to throw a question up, and we'll be glad to answer any questions about the league. Let's get into your matchups and throw them up here and talk about them a little bit. Your first one was the Railers in Connecticut. So, which side do you want to start with, or which your highlighted player?
Yeah, I'm gonna pick the Chiefs for this one. We're gonna just stick with the Chiefs, and I'm gonna throw you for a curveball since I know you love goalies so much.
Oh yeah.
The Chiefs have two goalies having unreal seasons, both really good players. I'm not sure which one is going to play in this game this weekend, so we'll highlight both of them. We got Jesse Easterwood. He's from Chicago, Illinois. Grew up playing for the Milwaukee Junior Admirals. I think he played a year or two in Colorado for maybe the Rampage. I'm going off memory, but currently his goals against average is 2.43, and he's got a 923 save percentage. So he's off to a great start. He's like I said, I'm not sure which of the two goalies are going to play between him, Adam Yost. Adam Yost is a Detroit area kid. He's from Canton, Michigan. He actually played high school hockey for Divine Child. Was a AAA player in his Bantam years and things like that, but he's a kid that went the high school route to finish out his midget years and whatnot. But you can see both of them, having great seasons when it comes to their stats and their save percentages and things like that. So I honestly feel like that's going to be the difference in this game is you're going up against two really good goaltenders, and the Chiefs aren't a team that necessarily scores a lot, but they play good team defense and they've got good goalies in front of them. So I honestly think that's going to be the difference in this game.
What was I supposed to do with goalies?
You're supposed to score on them, but you never could. That's why you don't like them.
No way. I'm good at scoring. I would have been in the NHL for 20 years if I only had to play in the 4x4 square in front of a goalie. The problem is they put that rest of the ice out there that kind of screwed me up a little bit.
Right.
So, hey, look, your Easterwood was your featured player, correct?
Well, they both were because I'm not sure who's going to play in that game.
Okay.
I'm not on the coaching
Let's
staff.
start out with Easterwood first. Once again, this is a big boy, 6'3", 195, 194, fills the net. Come up through the Milwaukee program, played for the Rampage. First year playing, he took 2 years at U18, came right up. That helps solidify that route. It doesn't mean you can't end up playing on a really good team. He just used up his U18 eligibility to get there, which is a smart move. Great save percentage, and looking at the games he played and the teams he's playing against top teams and low teams. But look at the spread. These are 1-goal, 2-goal spreads on most of the games he's in. So it's a competitive team. I didn't look to see what his win-loss was compared to the other gentleman. Let me see if I can get that up here. So Easterwood's sitting on 4-4-1. So they're both about the same. I mean, that's statistically, you can't get closer to these two goalies. Let's see a little bit about Adam Yost. This is a player I don't know. So, Mike, this is not a guy that I've got any background on and no notes on at all. So I'm looking fresh here, and all of a sudden I'm slowing down. Are you slowing down on your end?
I mean, you're speaking in the right realm, but looks like it's took a little bit.
It's called English. Some people say right realm. Other people say I speak English. You can choose. Wow, 6'2". You got two big goalies. 180 pounds from Canton, which if you know the market, Canton sits right outside of Ann Arbor. Us that went to the University of Michigan look at Canton as being the suburbs of Ann Arbor instead of the suburbs of Detroit. And numbers-wise, he came up, didn't take the normal path. He actually had some CCHL experience last year, and he was on an all roster for a while, and he came out of Divine Child, like you said. So this is This is honey baked CompuWare. You've heard us talk about this before. If you're playing hockey in Detroit, you're not a CompuWare guy. You're not a Bell Tire guy. You're not a Little Caesars guy. Yeah, you're going to have 3 or 4 of those teams on your resume because that's the way it is in Detroit. You might start out on Bell Tire and come up to U12 through Bell. Then all of a sudden, like Lemmings, what it reminds me of is when you go to SeaWorld or you go to go to see all the fish in, the glass plated walls, and you see these big, huge, I don't even know what you call them, hundreds of minnows together, and they dart this way and then they dart this way. That's Detroit hockey. You're going to start out one place, and then half the team's going to dart this way, and the other half is going to dart that way next year, and you're on a whole new team. And you didn't think anything was wrong. And here's why. It's super political. Everybody's coming from everywhere around the nation, and everybody's fighting to get with the best program. Second liners want to be first liners, so they make a deal and try to pull the third and fourth line with them to go to this team. The first liners want to get rid of the fourth liners, so they make a deal to go over here, so the bottom of the team was better. So, and the bottom guys, you're either chasing the dream or getting talked into being, on another team over here too. You don't know why. The top wants to get out and leave the rest. The bottom wants to make a deal. It's all political. So it's just funny to watch the market. It is incredible. Mike, am I wrong on this?
It's funny because you see it all the time and it never changes. So, and coaches are doing the same thing. They're going from one program to the next and they're bringing a crew with them. And, it's the Wild West, I guess.
So good matchup. I look forward to seeing what happens there. We wanted to throw one more topic in for you guys. This topic came up last on Monday's broadcast that I do that talks a lot more about the process, but I think it can correlate over because we talk about so much junior hockey. Mike, take the lead on this one. Explain. And folks, if you got a question, I know our audience has been, I'm watching our numbers. We've jumped up to a larger audience and sift down. When I speak, it goes away. When Mike starts speaking again, it all comes back. Tell us a little bit about the defected list in the NAHl. I did a really poor job of explaining it the other night, and I had to go back and kind of re-explain it. Tell me what you know about it and tell me how it affects people.
Yeah, and it's not something that I'm an expert in, but I can try to touch on it and hopefully it makes sense. But basically, as these teams are being constructed, they're either, comprised of returning players, players that have been tendered, players that they've drafted, a combination of all these players that they're trying to get to their 24-man roster. There's going to be players within that group that maybe aren't quite ready for junior hockey, but these teams don't want to lose their rights. In many cases, these players end up going back to midget hockey. Some of them are injured. Some of them may be in the USHL, and you want to make sure you have their rights still in case something happens where those players fall back down to the North American League. So there is a list that they call the defected list that you will put a handful of these players on, and that team will still have that player's rights. So no other North American League team can, be reaching out and talking to them and trying to get them to come and play for their team because they're a part of that list with whichever program has their rights.
Yeah, so I think that the two key parts of that I hear is if a player goes to the USHL and you want to bet on him coming back to the NAHl and you want to protect his rights, you put him on the defective list. And I honestly don't know if you have to even do it. That's a good question to answer for us to get answered is if you're in the USHL, do you permanently get put on the defected list for the team that you were drafted or tendered with? So I know if you're injured, you have to be put on that list. I think the team has to manually do both, but I'm going to get an answer on that to make sure. So you're at the USHL and the team in the NAHl says, we want to make sure we got him covered. They put him on the defected list, and then he comes back to your team. Now, the question that came up the other night is, do you have to go back to that team if you're on the defected list? And the example that was given was a player was injured during main camp, came out of main camp, never rostered with the team, but was put on the defected list. And the player now doesn't want to go to that team. He wants to go to a different team. So the question is, can that happen? And the answer is yes, it can happen. But the team that is picking you up is going to pay a big price, and there's a mandated package of draft picks, tenders, or cash that comes to the team that puts you on the defected list. So it can happen, but it's a high price to pay. It's a steep price to pay for the team that's trying to pick you up. They can't just sign you. So hopefully that helps with the defected list for the people out there that didn't understand the defected list. And honestly, you and I got to put together a video explaining that process a little bit better, because it comes up so little in conversation that I don't think either of
Most
us.
people are familiar with the affiliate list, or
Right.
the actual like dress list and things like that. But
Right.
the defected list is a little bit different. It typically happens right at the beginning of the season. You either get put on that, and it goes from there. But yes, that player, if they're on that defected list, they are, you hate to use it as, property, but they are property of that particular program. So if they are to play for a different North American League team, that other team is going to have to make a deal and trade whatever it is to have your rights, unless they just outright release you, which I don't know how these programs operate. We know how our program operates, but it's one of those things where they don't have to. So if they want to play that game, they can.
Yeah. Hey, listen, folks. If you got a question, we've got a few minutes here to pick up anybody's questions. If you want to make a comment, you want to tell Mike how great he's doing. Second live stream for you, and you're like a pro already, man. You're just nailing this.
Well, I think all the years of working in the corporate world through the pandemic and being on Zoom calls literally all day long has really prepped me for this. So it's pretty simple. And the best part about it
So
is
us
now I
guys
can
that
count.
actually had to, for us guys that actually had to go on regular TV and regular radio for years to get to
Yes,
this point, you're just come on and go, oh, I did a Zoom call. I got this down pat now. Way to go, man.
100%.
Way to go.
Simple.
All right. Hey, look, Sean, thanks so much for coming on. Sean says great information tonight. It should say great information, Jeff, and also thanks to the other guy. But we'll leave it at that, and appreciate it. Once again, you got a chance here while we're wrapping up. If you got a question, throw it up. Mike, where are you going to be this week?
I'm home. I just got back from Dallas, which was a long. What was I there for 5 days, coaching 8 games. Luckily, our team was 8-0, so didn't lose a game while we were there. So I think we might have to schedule more trips to Dallas. But yeah, it was a long weekend, and it was ridiculously cold down there, which is never fun. But this weekend, again, I'll be here locally. My plan is to just coach my team and probably watch games online and stay out of a cold ice rink as much as I can this weekend. How about you,
Mike,
Jeff? You got
you
anything
got
going on?
you got fans, man.
I know. I like how you put the message right over my face. That's great.
And Sean came back with the same message too for you there. Hey, where am I gonna be? Where am I gonna be this weekend? I am. Okay,
You in Detroit?
just in fairness, Troy says, Jeff, you could use some fine tuning. However, I know I wasn't good on it, good at this when I was doing it professionally, and on these broadcasts, I got lots of room to improve, man. So you're not telling me anything new, Troy. What's that?
The booming voice. You got the podcast, the radio, the TV voice.
I got a face for radio, though. That's what I got to work on. Is I gotta work on that part of things.
You can't be perfect.
Yeah, but when I get we're in the new house now. When I get the studio completely set up, it'll be nice. Nowhere near it right now. It's just all blank walls, except for the one hockey pitcher in the back. Anyway, where am I going to be? I am going to be in Detroit. I am going to the Tier 1 Elite. I believe the HPHL has an event going on there this weekend too. Could be a lot of U18 hockey in town. Plan on watching it with one contingency is my son, after 16 months, back surgery, shoulder surgery, may be getting into his first college game after winning the Robertson Cup 2 years ago in the NAHl. And he was injured that whole year, but played the whole year. had his surgeries, and now he's getting close to getting back in the lineup. So if that happens, I'm off to Wisconsin. And if it doesn't, I'm in Detroit for the whole weekend, and then I'll head to Wisconsin for the holidays. We're going to meet up and have Thanksgiving there with my daughter flying in from Dallas, and my wife and I going out to Wisconsin. So hopefully in Detroit this weekend for 3 days, watching some great hockey, and then beyond that, heading to Wisconsin. So, folks, thank you so much. We had a great night tonight. We covered some teams. Next week, we'll pick 2 more teams to cover. So by the time we're done, you will have all the information you need on all the different leagues. So far, we've covered the NAHl. We've covered the USHL. We've covered the AJ now with a little bit. We've covered the EAHL a little bit. We'll get around to these teams a lot. We'll cover all these teams a lot more. And as we get up to speed on these leagues and these players, we'll give you updates on the players. We'll give you updates on new players. And we'll cover a lot of things in the league so you get a real good understanding. And we'll always try to include at least every other week a Canadian League 2, if not 2 Canadian leagues at one time. Who knows? But we'll get it all covered so you've got a good understanding of everything. So we're going to do this broadcast every Wednesday at 7 that we can, with the only contingencies if there's some holidays that get in the way. And I know that Thanksgiving doesn't get in the way because it's always on a Thursday. So, the things that'll slow me down is we'll never broadcast on a University of Michigan football day, and we'll never broadcast on Thanksgiving or Christmas. So hopefully that helps a little bit. But, yeah, next Wednesday we'll see you at 7 o'clock. Mike, great job tonight.
Same to you, Jeff. You're crushing it here.
Okay. I know there's a fat joke underneath that, but I'm going to let it go.
Not tonight. Not tonight.
All right, man. We'll see you all. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Don't forget, I'll put the links into the Alberta video explaining the AJHL. I'll also put the link in for just in general, the Canadian Junior Hockey League, so you understand the CJHL. And was there another video we had to put in that we talked about tonight?
I don't think so. Not that I can remember.
Okay, just don't forget, you can get all this information at Junior Hockey Advisor. You can go onto the Facebook page, or you can go on to our website or our YouTube page, and all the videos that we do are here. The broadcast from last week for the Junior Hockey Live is there, along with interviews and all kinds of fun stuff. Our one-on-one interviews are there. The Junior Hockey Live, which you're watching right now, is there Wednesday night's broadcast. And our Sunday and Monday night, what I do live, is on there too. So grab all that stuff, a lot of content. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next week, folks.
Like and subscribe.